So I've been placing things kind of in an imaginary spot. See if I can keep it clean as I can. I got the intake painted and the fuel rails on there. So it'd be nice just to keep the motor open like that and clean. So I've been kind of guessing where I want to put the components for the fuel system. Got two filters and the fuel pump, and every little spot is pretty much taken up on this thing, so I could put that stuff in here, but I want to see if I can hide it down under here, keep it clean, come out of the bottom of the tank here, and get that stuff inside there. I think all three of those will fit inside, and then maybe even putting a trap door right here so I can get in there, access that if I need to from the top to service the fuel filters, and probably from the bottom also. I'll be able to get in there from a panel underneath and access that. So have it come up kind of hidden if I can, in here, over, out there, and then maybe even bring that line around the back and hide it. Stick the regulator down inside here so the top's poking out. I can adjust it, and then have a line come up for the gauge. Have the gauge popping out right here, and then dump it back into the top, or the bottom actually I should say, on this side. And then I'll have to vent the top of those on both sides, and that'll do it for the fuel system. So I need to get a water pump in there, figure out more where the hoses need to go. I'm glad I put the tanks in, because now I gotta make room for the crossover, which goes in between the two tanks, a tube, before I button everything down here. So I'm kind of holding off. Like right there is maybe where I'll put the e-brake cable. So a lot of ifs right now. It'll all come together once I get it laying there. And I need to start figuring out the electronics. How much of that is going to be visible with the wire loom and or hidden. We'll see. Well, I got something in the mail today. Got my short shifter. So it was pretty cheap. Be a nice upgrade. Shorter on the top, longer on the bottom. And it's got a different angle to it. So rather than being leaned way over to the passenger side, it's more straight up and down. So be a nice little upgrade, and now I gotta figure out how to get it out of there. It looks like those things just pop out. Just hold that ball in there. Same thing on the side over here. So that should be pretty easy. It also came with some spacers you know, which mount that thing up there, which is going to replace these rubber ones, which I imagine, you know, is just going to give it a tighter feel, a more positive feel to it, which is what you want. So those rubber ones come out of there. These ones fit right in there real nicely, and it came with some new bolts also, so I'll get that put in there. Yeah, I got it apart without ruining it. That's the part you got to take loose right there, and that piece goes in there with that pin that goes through there, and I got to get a new keeper on there. I had to cut that thing off, which goes over the end of that rod right there. So no big deal. Get some grease on it, slap that back together, stick this thing on here that keeps the boot in place, and it's done deal. Getting the belts done, or the pulley, drive pulleys done. Getting them set up, put the bracket in for the alternator. And the support bracket for the idler pulley that Shane made. Getting that installed. Cut the spacer in two, and you can see the pulleys aren't quite lined up. I'll have to cut that one down just a little bit more on the outside there and get that pulley in, and then I'll get the bracket put on for the tensioner, and it should be good to go for that part. Next thing I'm going to do is get the air compressor, the AC compressor, mounted in there. And I went and got a tool. They loan these out at O'Reilly's. AC clutch, orifice tube removal kit. So I'm going to be able to pull this clutch pulley assembly off of there, turn that around, relocate that wire connector to this other side over here. I saw a guy goes by Kempo on the forums who built a beautiful Gen 2 car. He switched that over because the frame comes down right there, and the connector, some guys notch out the frame. I'm going to move that thing over like he did. Looks like the best way to go. So we'll get that done. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but yeah, since I got this LS1 style pump, I did stick it up there, and it fits right on the LS2 style bracket, no problem. So should be okay on that part. Notice my water pump here. I got my new water pump on. When this car was wrecked, it must have destroyed the water pump, and they must have replaced it with this aftermarket one. So anyway, I bought a new water pump because of the guys on the forum saying you need the LS1 style pump. Well, I assumed the one that was on there was a LS2 style. So when I got the new one, it was the same pump, so whatever. I got a spare pump. The one I ordered is AC Delco brand. I'd rather have that in there than this aftermarket one anyway, so it's one of those things you kind of figure out as you go. You get smarter when you're done. There's the tensioner, which will go on top of that bracket that I'll put on top of the motor there. Got a whole ton of parts for the fuel system. Can't be happy with doing anything simple. I'm going to try and hide most of that fuel system and plumb it into those rails and go back to the other tank without seeing much of it. And so we'll see how that goes too. Okay, got that off. Combination of different pullers. Get the clutch off first. Then I had to pull the pulley off. And then another series of pullers to get that off. And see, that's what I'm after, to change this location from here to over there. So I'll put it all back together now. Trying to get a couple things more permanent. Got the insulation on the cooling tubes, and got the hoses hooked up to the water pump. Got the belts on it. I got to get a smaller belt for the AC pump. Since I changed the pump, must have a little bit smaller pulley because that belt don't fit anymore. But that's all mounted up, looks good. Got the manifold tubes on the back of it, and I don't know if you can see down in there. But that fits pretty well. And I've been mocking up the heater lines, the water lines for the heater, trying to find a good spot for those. Again, trying to hide it from the engine bay. Want to avoid having some big ugly black hoses in the engine bay if I can. And I'm thinking I'm going to have to take the water pump back off, get rid of these nipple hose ends out of there and thread that for pipe thread, and then get some aluminum fittings, which will go from the pipe thread to the barbed end for the hose. Because I need a 90 out of here or something. The hoses will fit in there, but they're damn near kinked, and then I want to try and route them into place again where they're hidden, and also so when the motor torques, I don't have a bunch of rubbing on the side of the frame as that's moving around in there, because eventually it's going to wear a hole in it, in the hose. So I want to try and keep that hose routed where it's clear from rubbing. You need a little bit of flex for that motor on all your lines, all your hoses, and try and keep it from rubbing. So yeah, I'm going to have to modify that, I think. And then back up front, trying to iron this out a little bit more. Man, one thing I didn't do, this tube here that comes out of the condenser, there's an orifice that goes in there. I don't know what the hell that does. but it needs to be in there. The vintage kit comes with two of those. One's for normally temperatures under 98, one's for temperatures typically over 98. So I chose the one under 98, and it's supposed to go inside that tube. I bent my tube a little bit to give myself good location for my hose, and of course that tube wants to be straight for that orifice in there. So I got it where it's straight enough where that orifice will fit in there and still have my bend for that hose to come down. And which means that this thing had to be loosened up and tightened up again, and I just about screwed myself because there's damn near no room to get in there and loosen that and tighten it up. But luckily I was able to get a couple wrenches in there and get that thing tight, but I just about made a mess out of things. So yeah, I think we're good there. Got the orifice in, and I'll hook that back up again. I got might as well be a good time to bend that new panel that goes in here, minus this cutout for the reservoir, which I'm going to have in the back instead of up front, so that'll go all the way across. Might as well bend that and get that in place. I'm still going to have to put some coating on that, and that's kind of a bummer because I'm not quite set up to spray that stuff at the moment, and I'll have to go buy a whole nother kit because I don't have any left over. So, but that's got to be put in place and buttoned up before I permanently mount the radiator. So I'm about to hook up the lines on the heater core, which are way down in here, and at least get the heater lines routed through the tube, get the insulation on those, and get the heater bypass valve. One of the guys on the forum, he goes by Crash. He developed a kit that you hook up to a vacuum solenoid. This is a vacuum diaphragm here, and that'll change the flow from when the heater's off. It lets the water continue to recirculate through the motor, which seems to be a better way to go, rather than when you turn the heater off, then that flow does not continue through there. And I think some of the guys are having problems with it, so they developed this system here. And that way when the heater's off, there's absolutely no hot water going through the heater core, so you're getting just pure fresh air, cold air, rather than cold air when the AC's on, fresh air when the AC's off. And so anyway, that should be good. I got to mount that and probably mount that down in here somewhere. Got to run a vacuum line to it, and then this switch which hooks up to the heater control, which runs that vacuum. And that's about it on that part.